Ladies and gentlemen, Fourth and Trollers, welcome back to Fourth and Troll Fantasy, the most entertaining fantasy football podcast on the planet. I'm Noah Selby.
And I'm Wes Selby.
And we have got a show for you guys today. We are through week 2 of the NFL season. We made it through some crazy games, some long games, some injuries we got to talk about. It was a wild week we had. But there are also some good things, some big names to break out, some upsets, some performances to talk about here. It was a fun week all around. Definitely very, very interesting and things to talk about today. First things first, Wes, how you doing?
I'm good. It's halftime between the Browns and Steelers game. So we're really just taking a quick break to record. Literally, no matter what time and what day you watch this video, the Browns-Steelers game is still going on.
It's still halftime. Yeah.
Forever. Oh my gosh.
That was unbelievable.
I've never seen a longer game in my life that didn't include
video
overtime.
Reviews. That was insane.
Holy cow. Anyway, I think how I'm doing, like most people, kind of confusing weekend for fantasy. I won every single one of my leagues in week 1, and I lost like all but 1 or 2 this time around. No. Some disappointing players from some of the big time that we'll get into in just a few minutes here, but I'm doing well overall. How are you, Noah?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. You know, Monday night was tough for many reasons. Long game.
Yeah.
Pretty boring for both of them, pretty much. Saints, Panthers, and Browns, Steelers. But if you're new to the show, I'll fill you in. I was banging the drum pretty hard on Nick Chubb this season. I had him my preseason RB2 coming into the year. And man, it is tough. Firstly, just as a football fan, to see a player like Nick Chubb go out like that, the way he did. Tough as a, just a fan of the person, Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is, if you haven't paid much attention, he's one of the more humble guys in the NFL. He's a great dude.
Great dude.
The play that sticks out to me, I can't remember who the opponent was, but it was like a minute to go in the game, and he broke off a long run, like 70-yard run, sprinting down the sideline. They were up like 10-7. Could have gone in for the touchdown. Instead, went out of bounds at the 1 so they could kneel the ball out. It's like, dude, what a guy. He is, man, tough to see Nick Chubb go out like that. And listen, not to make everything about fantasy football. Obviously, we want to give the space to allow for, this is a tough injury for Nick Chubb to overcome. But again, we are a fantasy football podcast, and I am a fantasy football lover, analyst, expert, if you want to call it that, whatever. It's tough to see your first or second round pick go out in week 2. It's tough. It's a tough time. I am a Nick Chubb owner in 3 of my 5 leagues this year. And it's tough. So I'm going to be hitting the waiver wire. But listen, I'm doing all right, all things considered. I still took home 2 wins in those leagues where I lost Nick Chubb. So we'll see.
And you went golfing.
We'll see how things play out. And I went golfing. So listen, everything's fantastic. Good. When golf's part of the weekend, it's always a good weekend. Listen, I'm doing all right. We'll get into it in the show here. We'll have a good time. Like we said, we got some players to talk about. Week 2 recap. Hyped up and let down. Fluke or for real. Waiver wire. A little bit of Thursday Night Football preview. Before we jump into all of that, make sure you're following us on all our social media. Make sure you are subscribing, ringing that bell. We're up to around, last week not even last week, I think it was on Friday's episode, we said, thank you guys so much. We just crossed the 100 subscriber mark. We're up to about 110 now, which is so cool to see that over the weekend. Thank you guys so much. It's really awesome. Shout out to, real quick, when I was walking my dog just before recording the show, my neighbor was outside and they were like, hey, were you watching football yesterday? And I was like, yeah, did you hear me screaming? I'm really sorry. That's going to happen for like the next 3 months. And they were like, no, it's all good. We're football fans too. And then I was like, all right, cool. And then came back up after walking my dog and they were like, do you play fantasy football? And I was like, yeah, I do actually. And I plugged the show a little bit. And I'm pretty sure they hit us with a subscribe on YouTube. So, hey, to my neighbors, if you're seeing this, shout out to you guys. It's really cool of you. It's pretty dope.
Look at you, Spider-Man.
Follow us on socials, subscribe,
hero.
ring the bell, drop us a comment, let us know if you won week 2. And now let's jump into the news, because there are things to talk about, Wes.
Well, as we've already discussed, because it is the most important headline going into today on this Tuesday, this lovely September 19th. Not as lovely as it would have been if we had Nick Chubb, but he is going to be out for this season. It's already been confirmed. Kevin Stefanski walked up to the podium right after the game, was like, yeah, he's out. He confirmed it's multiple torn ligaments. If anyone wants to watch the injury online, we recommend you don't. I actually have not watched it. I hear it is very gruesome. So for those that are curious, do not give in to the curiosity. Yeah, and for those that did watch the game last night live, that you may have noticed that ESPN actually deferred to not show the replay because it was too graphic for television. Yeah. But that's the kind of drastic injury it is. It's already just speculation if he's even going to play football again. But that's a year down the line. So Nick Chubb's out for the season. We're going to get into his backup running back in a little bit here, so stick around for what that looks like in Cleveland. Another running back went down, fighting really hard in this amazing comeback. The New York Giants superstar running back Saquon Barkley was helped off the field with a sprained ankle. It seemed like it was going to be very bad. It's still not good, but it's not as bad as it could have been. He's expected to miss about 3 weeks. That includes Thursday night, as we're going to get into Thursday night must starts, risky starts, and don't starts. And that backup running back as well, we're going to talk about Matt Breida, too. So Thursday night, Giants play. Another running back was already ruled out going into the weekend. Austin Eckler was ruled out Friday. He didn't even travel with the team to Nashville in that unfortunate loss against the Titans, which means that the ankle injury may be a little bit more than just a absence from over this last weekend. We're all kind of disappointed with how Joshua Kelly did, but maybe hold on to him. We're going to talk about how he did as well. We'll see what it looks like with Joshua Kelly and Eckler with this injury as well. Another bad injury from the previous week, week 1, Deontay Johnson over the, I believe it was Tuesday, right? Monday, Deontay Johnson was officially placed on IR. He's going to miss at least 4 games going forward. We saw how George Pickens did last night. That's something to keep in mind as well. This one's super interesting. Before the game, the Rams deactivated Cam Akers. And Sean McVay said it was a coaching decision and it was, quote, best for the team. What we know is that Kyren Williams is now officially the starting running back for the Los Angeles Rams, and they are in trade talks to get rid of Cam Akers. There was something weird like this last year, but Kyren Williams was hurt and didn't even play. Now he's the starter. Cam Akers may or may not end up in a different location. He may get cut. We will pay very close attention to what happens with that, because that is wild news. So Jalen Waddle, Sunday night against the Patriots in Foxborough, took a big hit. He was taken out with a concussion evaluation. He is still under protocol. They have obviously plenty of days left before their next game on Sunday, but something to pay attention to during the week because he's a very talented player, very important to that Dolphins offense. Garrett Wilson also went to the locker room at the end of the game on Sunday against the Cowboys. Reportedly, Robert Saleh said that it was the wind knocked out of him, and they just kind of kept him out because it was a blowout loss. But he's still questionable at the moment, so just keep a tab on that to see if there's anything else that lingers from this big hit against the Cowboys. Anthony Richardson went out as well in the second quarter with a concussion protocol. He was ruled out additionally. He's still in protocol. Gardner Minshew, of course, would be the starter if Richardson does not clear the protocol in time. Odell Beckham Jr. was ruled out with an ankle injury on Sunday. It doesn't appear to be too serious enough, but given his history, we'll see how many games that is. Yeah. So we don't ever celebrate injuries, but we do want to point out something here. Never celebrate injuries, but We've been on the Jahmyr Gibbs bandwagon, trying to hold out hope here. We're going to see an increase in Jahmyr Gibbs' role in Detroit because David Montgomery was carted off the field with a thigh injury and is already being determined he's going to miss a couple of weeks, which means that Jahmyr Gibbs, of course, is going to be in line for a large workload there in Detroit. Yes? Yes?
I just real quick, just you know.
Yeah.
We had some trolls on social media, not trollers, trolls. So
Right,
we
the
put
bad
out
kind.
a video that was like, hey, listen, week 1 from Jahmyr Gibbs, you didn't get what you wanted, but he was running at like a .88 fantasy points per touch clip there in week 1. And we had some people being like, oh, that's not sustainable. If you think that's sustainable, you should just change your name to Troll Fantasy. Yeah, in week 2 he was at 0.9 fantasy points per touch. So we'll see how things play out.
It just keeps going up.
A little bit sustainable there, if you ask me. Yeah, man, just a thought there, just a thought. Anyway, back to the news.
Just a quick little shout out to the trolls, not the trollers. Okay, last 2 pieces of news. Brandon Ayuk suffered a bit of a shoulder stinger, is what I'll call it, shoulder injury that limited his snap count. Kyle Shanahan said that he's still continued to play, but he limited the snap count for Ayuk. Bit of a disappointing game for him, but that's part of the reason why he's going to be limited in practice this week, and we're going to obviously monitor his status as he had a monster week 1, and we'll see how much that affects his playing time for week 3 if he's at any kind of snap count. And last bit of news, Jamal Williams left last night's game with a thigh injury. I don't recall if he ever returned, but this is the last week we're heading into without Alvin Kamara, so we'll pay attention to see if Jamal Williams will play. Tony Jones ended up with 2 random touchdowns for them, so we'll see how the last week without Kamara plays out. That's it for the news. Let's go over this wild week 2, Noah.
Let's do it. Let's get a little bit hyped up and let down before we jump into some more analysis on some performances here. Hyped up and let down, just as it sounds, if you're new to the show here. Some players that just absolutely balled out. We want to give our flowers to some players that let us down that we just want to, sit here in some sorrow with, as everyone who plays fantasy
We grieve
football
with
does.
you. We don't have all these players.
Listen, this is what this part is for. Cue the
community.
raindrops and the the intro to Up music or whatever it is. There you go. Listen, hyped up. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
Copyright.
Copyright strike. Exactly. Listen, hyped up. And I'm hyped up because I was loving this dude. Ended up changing my draft strategy a bit because I was thinking about taking somebody in the 3rd round, and then I realized, you know what? This dude's going to get to me in the 4th round of my leagues. It's Keenan Allen, man. Keenan Allen, 31.1 fantasy points this week, 8 catches, 10 targets, 111 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's picking up where he left off with Justin Herbert at the end of the year last year, and I am hyped up on Keenan Allen. He seems to be that dude, even though he's been in the league for a long time, and a dude who also seems to be that dude who has not been in the league for a long time. Perhaps really only 2 games he's been in the NFL. Puka Nacua, man. Listen, I know I was saying last week, Puka's the top waiver ad, he's the top waiver ad. So is everybody. I wasn't making some astonishing discovery here or anything like that. He was the top ad in fantasy football last week on the waiver wire. We were checking to see what it was going to be like. We were like, you know what? Let's see if he repeats it. Let's see if it was a fluke. Doesn't feel like a fluke. Feels like it's for real. It's for real. 20 targets, you guys. 20 targets in his 2nd ever NFL game. 15 catches, 147 yards. He had 30.1 fantasy points. We hope you put him in your lineup. I know I did, and I'm pretty hyped up about it.
I checked something real quick on Puka Nacua with those 20 targets. The record for most 21? Targets. The record for most targets is 28. Can you believe he was that close to having the most targets in a single game?
Oh my goodness! In the 2nd ever NFL game, guys, it's. What's going on here? This dude, I said it last week, I think. If I haven't said it last week, I'll say it now. It's legit. It's legit because you know what?
Yeah.
When someone earns the trust of Matthew Stafford, he throws him the football. We've seen it happen. But listen, we'll cross this bridge when we get there when Cooper Kupp comes back. But even when Kupp is back, I'm keeping him in my lineup. We'll talk about it.
Sounds like there's an affair with Puka Nacua.
Uh-oh, I wonder who's going to be having breakfast together. Ooh.
Oh!
Listen, Josh Allen, bounce back game for all the Josh Allen owners. I know you might have been worried.
There it is.
4 turnovers in week 1, 0 turnovers in week 2.
Mwah.
Still averaging more turnovers per game than Tua Tagovailoa. It's all good, though. We'll move on from that. Anyways,
Stop it.
Listen.
Stop it.
Just being biased Dolphins. This podcast has turned into a Dolphins podcast.
Golly.
Somehow, every single time. Listen, Josh Allen, 29.66 fantasy points. Absolutely had himself a day. Mike Evans, 29.1 fantasy points. And I'm willing to say it. I might have been wrong. And the hurt from last year may have been playing into things too much. Baker Mayfield seems to be leading this offense pretty well, man. The Bucs are 2-0. Mike Evans is a certified stud in fantasy football right now. He had 29.1 fantasy points. Let's see what happens whenever they're playing not the Buccaneers, but not the Bears. They are the Buccaneers. They never play each other.
They are the Bucs, yeah.
We'll see. We'll see what happens here.
Looks
Another
like
guy
himself.
who's running away. Yeah. Another guy who's running away with this job. Brian Robinson Jr. My goodness. 28.9 fantasy points, 18 carries, 87 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 catches on 3 targets for 42 yards. He is getting it done everywhere. Antonio Gibson believers, I'm sorry. We took the wrong running back in the draft. We took the wrong running back. They were right next to each other. We should have taken the other one. I don't know. We made a mistake there. T. Higgins gets back on track here. 28.9 fantasy points, 8 catches, 12 targets. He had 2 touchdowns in the game. Good to see that. Not so great to see some performances from some other Cincinnati Bengals, but we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Last guy we had to talk about here, a fellow teammate of Puka Nacua. Kyron Williams, 28 fantasy points. We talked about it in the news segment. He has earned this starting job. K-Makers is nowhere to be seen. Kyron Williams, 28 fantasy points, 14 carries, 52 yards, and a touchdown, 6 catches on 10 targets. He plays running back, by the way. 10 targets, 48 yards, and a touchdown there. 28 fantasy points. And this was against the San Francisco 49ers. Do matchups get harder than that? I don't know. Will he get 28 points every single week? Probably not. But the dude has 4 touchdowns on the year, and it's week 2. It's 4 touchdowns. We just got through week 2. It's this
Rams?
Dude. My goodness, the Rams are confident. Dude, I think you and I were both. We didn't have him anywhere near top 10, and I believe he's only thrown 1 touchdown so far. But you and I were both higher than consensus on Matthew Stafford. I mean, we just kind of we went. The dude's a year removed from a Super Bowl win. Like, what are we talking about here, man?
Yeah,
the Rams was hurt last
year. Cooper Kupp was hurt last year.
Yeah,
look at this.
The Rams are something. They're giving up a lot of points, but the offense is keeping up. So it's something to take a look at there. Kyron Williams is awesome. Hopefully you have him if you also had Nick Chubb, so he's a guy who can fill in for you. Listen, hyped up by those guys. Let's get let down, though, because we talked about T. Higgins. But Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, what is going on here? Joe Burrow, 19.3 fantasy points. Not terrible, but just let down. Not what you were hoping maybe the bounce back game was. I mean, granted, that's like 16 more points than he scored last week, I'm pretty sure. But when you drafted Joe Burrow, you were kind of hoping you'd get this 25-point floor, and you get a little more points here. So a little bit let down by Joe Burrow. A lot let down by Jamar Chase. Some of you probably took him as the 101 in your fantasy football drafts. Wes, real quick, let's just talk about it for just 30 seconds here.
Please.
What are we thinking about with the Bengals? What are we doing? What are we doing here?
Everyone do like me. Breathe in. Breathe out. It's going to be just fine. They were 0-2 last year. They're going to fix it. They're going to turn it around. It's Joe Burrow, okay? This isn't some quarterback and some wide receiver we have high hopes for. These are players that have high hopes that have already been met. They were in the aforementioned Super Bowl against Matthew Stafford 2 years ago. It's going to be fine. I did a little digging for those that want some kind of numerical, tangible evidence for how this is going to be okay. Joe Burrow did not make top 10 until week 6 in 2021, in the year they went to the Super Bowl. And he finished QB 8. Last year, he wasn't top 10 on the week until week 3. And he was QB 4 last year. It's going to be fine. It's Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. We're not talking about, I don't know, it's not Jalen Waddle. I love Jalen Waddle, but I wouldn't take Jalen Waddle in the first round. We're going to be fine. It's going to be okay. Trade for Jamar Chase for those that are panicking. And if you have him, don't trade him. Just RELAX. Relax.
There you go. Everybody relax. Everything's going to be okay. We promise. Something we got to talk about here, though, is a guy who was on the hyped up list last week, Calvin Ridley.
Yeah.
5.2 fantasy points. 2 catches on 8 targets for 32 yards. Now,
Go on. We got some other Jaguars we're going to talk about, but go ahead.
I'll just say this as well. You know, Trevor Lawrence, 9.2 fantasy points. Like, it's just not a great performance and not what we're really hoping for. And I don't want to get worried too quickly that this Jaguars offense this year is going to be like the Chiefs last year. And it's like, yeah, you're going to have to guess every week on who is going to be able to be the one who balls out. But we did say coming into the year, there are a lot of pieces of the pie. There are a lot of pieces of this pie, and it might be tough to figure out who is going to get the work every week. Now, the 8 targets is something I'm still excited about because that's what I hold on to. I don't think you need to panic as a Calvin Ridley owner. That's my thought. Is that 8 targets, he's still going to be fine and he's still going to bounce back. He's still, I think there may have just been some keying in on the defense from the Chiefs. So that's my thought. Calvin Ridley just a little let down this week.
Ditto. It's a little bit more of a guessing game than I think we anticipated. We realized it may have been because they have a lot of weapons, but we may see some more letdown Jaguars players on this list than we hoped for.
Yeah, definitely. A guy on the team that they just went up against, Travis Kelce, first game back, 12.6 fantasy points. Not great, not the Kelce performance you were hoping for, but 9 targets. Same thing with Calvin Ridley here. The targets are there. He's still Mahomes' guy. Not much else to it. He really is going to be fine. Don't worry. It's just maybe it was first game. He first came back off injury as well. Like that's something that we need to consider as well.
I think he was still tied in 7. Like he still was top 10. Like
he was still great. Like he was still awesome. You weren't disappointed. It was just like, oh, okay, maybe, maybe a little more points next time, Trav. But it's all good. Yeah, it's fine. We saw a great game from Josh Allen. Interesting that Stephon Diggs was not on the massive receiving end of that. 7 catches on 7 targets with just 66 yards. Raiders defense might have been playing a little bit better than we thought, but 7 catches for 66 is fine. It was just a little bit of game script and kind of how things went. They kind of got up pretty quickly on the Raiders, and we saw James Cook have a great day. We'll talk about him in a little bit. It may have just not been Stephon Diggs' day. 13.6 is still serviceable. You hope for a little more out of your top wide receiver pick, but it's fine, and we'll get better. We'll have better days ahead. Last couple guys here. Tua Tagovailoa, 14.26 fantasy points, 21 for 30, 249 yards and a touchdown. Did throw an interception, a couple yards on the ground. Wes, I said to you before this game, I think Bill Belichick is going to limit the big plays in this game. I think we're going to win this game differently. I think a lot of the analysts on Sunday Night Football were also saying a similar thing. Bill Belichick is a smart dude. He's not smart enough to beat Tua Tagovailoa because Tua Tagovailoa is now 5-0 against Bill Belichick in his career. But 14.26, not what you hope from Tua after such a big game in week 1, but be able to bounce back, obviously. Didn't have the 466 passing yards, the crazy big plays, stuff like that. Defensive scheme was working against the pass game. Raheem Mostert was a benefactor of that, so he took over that game. Last guy, Brandon Ayuk, 7.3 fantasy points. We talked about him a little bit. Going to need to monitor him to see if he's going to be able to play and suit up for Thursday night. But he was a little banged up, guys. He was banged up. He was in and out. He left the game. He got banged up pretty early, left the game, came back, got banged up again. It was just like, dude didn't look good, didn't look like himself. Debo had himself a day. We'll talk about that, I believe, in just a little bit. But Debo had a solid day in the absence of Brandon Ayuk. The only guy that was puzzling there was George Kittle, not too involved, but we will see what happens. That is hyped up and let down. Now let's jump into fluke or for real, because we got a lot of people to talk about here. We're going to fly through this for you guys. First one, already mentioned him, Brian Robinson, 28.9 fantasy points. For me, he is taking over this job. Wes, this feels for real. What do you think?
You can't argue with 18 carries. I mean, you can't argue. 18 carries, 2 touchdowns. Just a little bit in the receiving game, but it's going to be hard to ask for PPR volume from him when they've got such a great receiving core in Washington. But he nearly had 30 points, and that's really almost exclusively on the ground. Yeah. Brian Robinson's the real deal.
Yeah, no, he's legit. And that was against the Denver defense. That defense is good. That's a good defense. They are not somebody, they're not the Texans who you just run all over. That is a good defense, and he put on a show. For real, Brian Robinson, I buy in. Another guy that I think I'm buying in on is Zach Moss, man. And he is such a weird name to talk about here, but 20.7 fantasy points, 15 carries, only 18 yards. Is that true? Only 18 yards?
That can't be.
Did
I make a typo?
There might be a typo. I'm not sure. Was it 118? I don't know.
Let me look it up. Let me look it up.
I read 18 yards and I was like, how many touchdowns did he score?
I know, like 40 touchdowns.
Yeah.
No, I don't know how. 98 yards.
98. Two
somehow
of the furthest
one and
apart
the 9
numbers.
were.
Yeah, just
I don't
flipped
know.
out there.
You should see our breakdown sometime, trollers. We got
it is
so many
all
freaking
over the
numbers to
place.
look at here.
All over the place.
98 yards
Zach Moss,
rushing for Zach Moss.
15 carries, 98 yards, and a touchdown. Also, 4 catches on 4 targets for 19 yards. Listen, Anthony Richardson wasn't in the game for very long. Anthony Richardson had 2 rushing touchdowns before he left the game. So maybe this is the ceiling for Zach Moss, but no one else was really to be seen in this running back room. And if Jonathan Taylor doesn't come back, Zach Moss has this job locked up. So Zach Moss seems legit. If you picked him up on your waiver wire, just had to spend a little bit of fab to get him, you're feeling pretty good. Zach Moss is going to be pretty solid. Christian Kirk, after a 0-point week 1, joins T. Higgins to be just the bounce back week 2 guys, apparently, because he put up a goose egg in week 1 and has nearly 22 points in week 2. 11 catches on 14 targets for 110 yards. It's going to be tough to predict this Jaguars offense. I think the Jaguars offense this year is going to kind of be like Tyler Lockett's career. And I'll add Mike Williams to this too. If you got them, they're in your lineup, and you're gonna ride the high, or you're gonna go down in flames with them. Like it is going to be impossible to predict the games that these guys are gonna go off. Yeah. Trevor Lawrence is gonna figure out who he's feeling good with that day, and he's gonna go to him. 14 targets is legit. Christian Kirk, I hope you didn't drop him after week 1. I hope you kept him on your roster, because I'd feel comfortable running him as a flex play every week after a 14-target game, I think. I think it's worth the risk, just because I feel like...
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Okay, no, I was just going to say, they paid him a bucket load of money whenever he came to Jacksonville. We were all like, wow, this dude just reset the market on wide receivers. I wondered if last week was fluky. It didn't feel like it, because it felt like Calvin Ridley was just going to be so dominant and just be so clearly the number 1 guy. I do believe he is clearly the number 1 guy, but Christian Kirk is going to have his, and so if you've got him, I think you got to log him in.
Yeah, I was just going to say that someone came up to me and asked, like, dude, I feel so bad. I could have won if I started Christian Kirk. would you have started Christian Kirk? And I was like,
No.
I wouldn't have started him after that week. He was like, oh, I feel so much better now. It's like, no, I would not start someone that got 1.3 points in their debut of this season. But just as you said, and what we've been saying so far in this episode, Jaguars offense is going to be a little more tricky to predict, but it does feel like Calvin Ridley is going to be the alpha on that offense. But overall, ups and downs for that Jags team.
Yeah, I'll just to add on to that real quick. I'll just say our graphic designer Brandon was like, "Oh man, should have started Puka," and I was like, "Oh, did you like who did you go with?" And he was like, "Oh, I went with T Higgins," and I was like, "Oh, okay, well it's still a good week." And he was like, "Yeah, but I should have started him over AJ Brown and somebody else," and it was like, you can't. I don't know if you can look at your lineup that way. It's just tough. I do it. I find myself doing it too. I'm like, if only I started. Nico Collins over Keenan Allen. Oh, man, I would have had and Nico Collins over A.J. Brown. Gosh, I'm such a doofus. Like, no, guys. Like, you can't live your fantasy life like this. I mean, I know I still do. You probably still will. Don't beat yourself up about it, though. This stuff happens. It's fantasy football. You know, it happens all the time. It happens all the time. You'll be all right. We'll make it through. Christian Kirk. I think it's for real. I think it's just it's Tyler Lockett-esque. That's how I feel.
Boom bust. Yeah, it's for real.
Yeah, he's a boom bust guy. James Cook. Oh, baby. James Cook, 19.9 fantasy points, 17 carries, 123 yards, 4 targets, 4 catches, 21 opportunities for Mr. James Cook, and he was a freaking animal, dude. I am so excited about James Cook. So good to see him doing what I believed he could do. Don't want to overreact. I know it's only week 2, but it's awesome to see him doing this. I will say, one thing to point out just about James Cook. The Bills got down inside the 5-yard line a couple times this week. James Cook is nowhere to be seen on the field. James Cook is not in those packages. It's a bummer. He might find his way into those packages at times. There might be certain plays inside the 5-yard line that they scheme up that maybe a halfback, like a wheel route or something like that he's on there for. But James Cook, the touchdowns may not be there, but do not worry because even without any touchdowns, still 20-point week. Lock him into the lineup. He is there for you. Freaking hype, man. I love James Cook so much. I love James Cook.
We're doing our headlines in the offseason of James Cook being top 15 and was thinking about it and was like, you know what? Print that headline. It looks like for real. Yeah. And you said let's not overreact, but after week 1, I pressed the panic button immediately on Najee Harris. And I ended up trading for James Cook and Elijah Moore, and I'm already feeling great. This is it. Without a touchdown, he gets 20 points. Sign me up. And
100%.
This is the conservative offense we were talking about for Buffalo. Look what happens.
17 carries, 4 catches. Josh Allen checking the ball down. Love it. Love to see it there. His teammate Gabe Davis had himself a good day too. 21.2 fantasy points, 6 catches, 92 yards, and a touchdown. It feels Christian Kirky to me. It feels like if you got Gabe Davis, you got him probably pretty late, so you may not have to just ride with him, but it's going to be impossible to predict the weeks that he is going to do this. So if you're a Gabe Davis believer and you drafted him, you got to roll him out. Go for it. This is I don't want to call Fluker for real, but I just think we can label him boom bust. I think that is fair to say.
Absolutely.
So he is a guy that if you got him, you got to roll him out. Yeah, 100%. Drake London, hey, 18.7 fantasy points, scores himself a touchdown, 7 targets after just 1 target last week. I still think it's a fluke.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take a lot for us to believe that Drake London's it.
Yeah, they're just Bijan Robinson is the offense, and my goodness, Jonnu Smith had more catches than Kyle Pitts this week. So what is going on? What is going on? This is ridiculous. Matt Collins was making highlight plays for this team. What are we doing here, Arthur Smith? All right, Rachaad White, 21.3 fantasy points, 17 carries, 73 yards, and a touchdown, 5 catches on 5 targets. He gets some work in the passing game pretty solidly. Fluker for real, Wes, because I want to hear what you have to say. I don't know where I stand on this, really.
Well, it's sustainable. That stat line is sustainable. 17 carries. That is a clear starting running back for what appears to be a solid team. They have a receiving threat with Mike Evans, and let's not forget Chris Godwin is there, and the rookie Trey Palmer's making some big-time plays as well. Baker Mayfield looks like he's playing at a level that can help this team win. They're 2-0. We'll see what happens when they're playing more formidable opponents. Yeah. But let me throw in one last thing for context. We have a lot of running backs that are injured right now. So, yes, for the sake of your team, Rachaad White is for real. Don't trade him to someone that needs a running back like an Eckler owner or a Nick Chubb owner or a Saquon owner. Don't roll him. Don't let him go. Keep him. Don't try to get a great wide receiver in exchange. No, that's my take. It's for real, and don't let him go.
Yeah, it's for real. He is a starting running back in the NFL very clearly on a competent offense. So he is worth having in your lineup. I agree. Rachaad White is looking pretty good. Tyler Lockett, baby. 25.9 fantasy points, 2 touchdowns. It's for real.
Did we not say this?
If you didn't catch it last week, get that crap out of here. Tyler Lockett's for real. Come on. Come on, dude. CJ Stroud. Week 2's leading passer, CJ Stroud. What on earth? 25.46 fantasy points, 47 passes, 347 passes, 30 completions, 384 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, had a fumble. And they supported some pretty solid guys, too. What do we think? This Texans offense, Nico Collins, 27.6 fantasy points, gets in the end zone, has 7 catches. Tank Dell, 20.2 fantasy points, 7 catches, 72 yards and a touchdown. My goodness. I mean, I don't know if CJ Stroud is for real, but Nico Collins is for real. Nico Collins is for real in my book. I think this is 2 weeks in a row now where he had 11 targets in week 1. 20 targets so far in the first 2 weeks. Man.
And Nico is picking up where he left off with Houston last year. The end of the season, he was looking like a legitimate playoff flex option. He's playing like a reliable wide receiver for this rookie quarterback. Now, I'm going to push back on CJ Stroud. No disrespect. I'm not going to say that he's not for real for fantasy. But I'm going to push back and say that it was a blowout. It was a blowout game. They were up big. It was like 30-10 at some point. And Anthony Richardson went out before halftime. So I'm going to push back and say that super great 384-yard performance is because of a blowout. I think in other situations you'd see the ground game a little more involved. So I think that is the most points CJ Stroud will score in a single game all year. But the wide receivers, yes, I'm buying in to Collins and Dell for real.
Yeah, for real. For real, for sure. Listen, George Pickens, 22.7 fantasy points, 4 catches, 10 targets, 127 yards and a touchdown. Had maybe the highlight of the game last night there. And while Deontay Johnson's out, maybe for real, 10 targets is pretty legit. Only 4 catches. One of them was like the 70-yard touchdown or whatever it was. So a lot of the production came on one play. But Browns are a solid opponent, and they weren't doing a whole lot there. But for Pickens to get 10 targets, it does seem like he is going to be the go-to here while Deontay Johnson is out. So Pickett, we'll look for Pickens. And if you drafted Pickens, you're feeling pretty good right now. He's going to be solid for at least another 4 weeks here while Deontay Johnson is out. I think it's for real with an asterisk until Deontay Johnson returns, and then we got to see. So that's what I'm feeling.
I have nothing to add. You're spot on.
Great. Nailed it. Boom. Double down.
Nailed it.
Raheem Mostert, 25.7 fantasy points. We talked about it. The Dolphins ended up having to run the football in this game. Bill Belichick opened up the lanes for him because he was trying to stop this electric duo or trio. I'll add even Jalen Waddle in there. Raheem Mostert, 25.7, 18 carries, 121 yards, and 2 touchdowns. What I take away from this, I think this is for real because I think I'm willing to say he's the dude. That's what I think. He's the dude. There's not. Savon Ahmed was involved. He got hurt. Devon Achane got like 2 opportunities when Savon Ahmed got hurt. Mostert was the guy. He was the guy. I mean, listen, you don't get 18 carries and not be impactful for your team and have trust from your coach and stuff like that. So Raheem Mostert is a solid. Roll him out continually. We'll have to reevaluate when Jeff Wilson comes back, but that's what I'm saying for real here on Raheem Mostert.
And you take away that 40-yard touchdown, that's about 10 points off of his total. That's still 15 points without the 40-yard touchdown.
It's a 15-point game. Yeah.
And again, this is with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle on that offense. And Tua is, I think, 285 yards away from having 1,000 passing yards already on the season. If this is what Raheem Mostert can do with a passing offense like that, what a great find in drafts, because it felt confusing. We both thought that Devon Achane was going to be more involved. There's still so much football left to go. Mike McDaniel is wickedly creative for that offense, so we'll see what happens with Achane. But for now, keep rolling out Mostert, baby. It's working, and he's doing great.
Yeah.
Back-to-back weeks with a touchdown.
Yeah, love it. Loving Mostert a lot here. A few Broncos to talk about. Russell Wilson, 31.9 fantasy points. Marvin Mims, 20.3 fantasy points. And Brandon Johnson, 20.6 fantasy points. Ready? Sing the song with me. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Fluke, fluke, fluke.
Fluke,
there
fluke,
you go.
fluke.
That's the song.
Fluke, fluke, fluke.
Yeah, that's the whole song. It's just fluke, fluke, fluke. All 3 of these guys are flukes. If you've got somebody who's got Justin Fields and you can sell him, you can sell him Russell Wilson. I don't know if you listen, guys. If you didn't watch the game and you were just looking at the fantasy score, Russell Wilson looked like garbage in this game. Russell Wilson looked terrible. He looked so bad. So bad. He had a 50-yard Hail Mary touchdown, and then it was like a 70-yard just go route touchdown to Marvin Mims. Like over half his yards came on 2 plays here, guys, and 2 of his touchdowns. He take those 2 plays away. I know people are like, oh yeah, of course if you take the 2 best plays away, then he's gonna do bad. No, listen, right. Russell Wilson was so bad. 2 plays here, you take those away. He's having like a 10-point game or something like that. He had like 150 yards and a touchdown. Like that's it. Oh man, this Broncos offense, I really wanted Sean Payton to fix them, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen through 2 weeks. I hope things turn around. I really do. I really like Russell Wilson, man. I think he's a great guy. I think he's a fantastic NFL player in the past. But this Broncos offense is not what we want it to be. Again. So, fluke, fluke, fluke. Move on. If you can sell Russell Wilson, sell him. There you go. Sky Moore, 16 points. 4 targets, 3 catches, 70 yards, and a touchdown. Fluke. That's a fluke. There you go. Baby. Travis Kelce is the only guy to focus on there.
The sky's the limit there.
Yeah, the sky's the limit, and suddenly we're flying at negative 40,000 feet. There you go. That's what's going on here. Josh Reynolds, 23.6 fantasy points. That's something to look at here. 5 catches, 2 touchdowns. He scored a touchdown last week, too.
I got it.
Go for it, Wes. I mean, I feel a certain way until something happens. But go ahead.
Exactly. Until Jameson Williams is back, you can line up Josh Reynolds in your flex option, or maybe wide receiver 2 if things are looking bad in matchups. But it's a name we noticed in the opening kickoff to this season against the Chiefs. Josh Reynolds looked pretty good. He's a good player, but these numbers will not be sustainable as soon as Jameson Williams is back, because he's good. I don't think people know how good Jameson Williams is, because he's missed the first half of both his seasons so far. Yeah. But he's great. He's going to be part of that team. So enjoy Reynolds while you can. I strongly encourage you to sell him high if you have him.
Yeah.
Strongly encourage you.
Definitely. Last couple here. A couple of Cardinals. 17.4 fantasy points for Marquise Brown and 27.2 for Josh Dobbs. Fluke, I think this team is bad. I think this team is really bad. And Marquise Brown was encouraging. 10 targets is encouraging. I think maybe this is his ceiling. So if you're a little worried, maybe sell if you can. But I'm not. I have Marquise Brown in a league, and I had to play him because I had Cam Akers, and I wasn't excited, and I was relieved at the outcome. So I'm going to be actively looking to not have to keep Marquise Brown in my lineup. That's kind of where I'm at here. If you can sell him, sell. Yeah. That's how I feel, Wes. I don't know if you feel Marquise Brown was I think he was
I really
close
liked
to being
him.
My guy. I don't know. We both were so high on him, and then as we got closer to the season, we were like, oh, this Cardinals team is gonna suck. This team is gonna be so bad.
If there's ever anyone that will end up on the Fluke or For Real segment in the good category as we close out the good category, Marquise Brown will end up here again, but he will not be anything more than a flex option. The only starting Cardinal right now is going to be James Conner until further notice.
Yeah, 100%. There you go. Last guy here, Daniel Jones. Man, whew, what a game. That was pretty incredible to watch the Giants come back there. Listen, Daniel Jones, 34.7 fantasy points, 321 yards, and 2 touchdowns. An interception, but also had a rushing touchdown as well. Guys, this all came, his interception. In the first half, he had 60 yards passing and an interception. That was pretty much it. He had a fantastic game in the second half of this game. Now, it was the Cardinals. Not a great team to go up against, and the comeback was very impressive. Very impressive comeback. I applaud you, New York Giants. I applaud you, Brian Daboll. Thank you for getting Darren Waller involved a little bit. Would have loved to see him get in the end zone. We'll work on that next week. Thursday night's coming. Fluke. That's all I got. Fluke. That's what I got to say.
The only thing that I like is the rushing stats without Saquon.
Right. Yes, so the next 3 weeks are going to be very interesting to watch here. We could see Thursday night he comes out and does another 60 for a touchdown against the Niners because he can't pass to anybody. So
the only reason, not the only, but the biggest reason you and I did not include Daniel Jones in our top 10 rankings, even though he was top 10 last year, is because Saquon is going to take away the rushing upside that Daniel Jones has. Right. And Daniel Jones is not an amazing passer. But he literally took the game and did it all himself.
Yeah.
I unfortunately, I agree. I think it is a fluke. But we will talk about Daniel Jones in our Thursday night must risk you don't starts.
100%. And I do, listen, I have been talking about Daniel Jones a lot as a poor player. I want to give him his credit. He had an unbelievable second half performance in this game. He made some great passes. He figured out who his deep threat target was with Jalen Hyatt. These guys, it was a very impressive second half for Daniel Jones. I just wonder if it's going to be sustainable, if it's going to keep up. It was the Cardinals. We saw him against a really good defense in week 1, and it was terrible. We're going to see him against a really good defense on Thursday night for week 3. We will see what's going to happen then, and we will be talking more about him later on. So it's going to be an interesting thing to watch here. Let's fly through the bad guys here real quick because it's never fun to talk about. But Jamar Chase, 8.1 fantasy points. Listen, we already said it. Fluke. He will find his way. 8 targets is still 8 targets. The Ravens' defense was hurt, and they still played very good defense on Jamar Chase. So he was a focal point for them. I call Fluke. Something I sadly call for real on. Najee Harris. 5.3 fantasy points. Is there a chance it's just 2 good defenses in a row? Is there a chance? I hope there is, but also...
No. No. If Jalen Warren is walking away with twice as many points again, and Jalen Warren's getting 45% snap count, this is for real. And I feel relieved I traded him away already.
So sad. I saw a tweet that somebody was like, sad. Man, I've tried really hard to stay on the train for a long time, but Najee Harris is bad. Najee Harris. That was my concern last year.
Can we get Ben Roethlisberger back?
Right. That's what I was about to bring up. Is that was my concern last year, was that hey, Ben Roethlisberger was in such bad shape his final year of his career that Najee Harris was just hyper targeted. It was Najee Harris, or if Najee Harris wasn't available, it was Deontay Johnson. That was it. That was the offensive game plan in Ben Roethlisberger's final year. And man, all I can think about is if the Miami Dolphins drafted Najee Harris, he'd be having such a better fantasy career. That's all I can think about. I'm still salty. We didn't do it that time.
Yeah, I was upset. He looked slow in that end around. He copied Jerome Ford's run that ended up going 70 yards.
Right.
Najee Harris tried to copy it, and he looked like his feet were made of lead.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
Best play of the night, and it was like, oh man, you don't look good, buddy. This is a little rough here. Najee Harris, this is for real, sadly. Josh Jacobs, 9.9 fantasy points, 9 carries. He had -2 rushing yards, so call it a win for yourself that he got 9.9 fantasy points. But the game script probably wasn't favoring him too much for them to be running the football this game. Devontae Adams also went out, so it wasn't like they were being very competitive offensively. 5 catches on 6 targets for 51 yards is still the encouraging sign for me. I'm not really panicking on Josh Jacobs. It isn't exactly what we planned on, but Wes, actually, this isn't exactly what the consensus planned on, but Wes, this is what you and I planned on. We both did not have Josh Jacobs in our top 10. He was around 15 or 16 for me. I'm not sure exactly where he was for you. He was not a guy that I was like, yep, he's going to run it back here with 1,700 all-purpose, and he's going to just absolutely blow it out of the water. That was not the case in either of our eyes. I think he'll have better days, though. I think 9.9 fantasy points is... I think he did something similar to this in week 1. Maybe this is the floor. Maybe this is the floor for Josh Jacobs, is around 10 points. That's probably not what you're hoping for a guy you drafted at the end of the second round. So you're probably disappointed, but I'm going to say this probably for real, because this is probably where he's going to land around in my eyes for most performances. And this was even without Jacoby Myers. They were missing 2 of their best, Devontae Adams for part of the game and Jacoby Myers for the whole game, and he's still just 9.9 fantasy points. So not great, and not what you want from Josh Jacobs if you drafted him, for sure. So
yeah. It's just adding on to what you said. The reason we call this for real is because we both barely have him in our top 15, if at all, because we saw this happening. We predicted this was going to be the situation. So this stat line is a fluke, but these underwhelming performances for a second-round player is for real. He's not going to. He's barely going to be. He's not top 10 for sure.
Right.
No,
100%. 100%. Jalen Waddle, 12.4 fantasy points, had a fantastic catch down the sideline. This is a fluke. I mean, listen, I know you might be thinking, oh man, 2 weeks in a row from Waddle not having a touchdown, not having a big game, a big 20-point game. Hold strong, all right? Take a deep breath, relax. We saw Jalen Waddle had 12.4, Tyreek Hill only had 15, okay? So in retrospect, when we look at it, this passing game for this Dolphins offense was not running because the Dolphins were having to run the football. Bill Belichick was shutting down the pass a little bit. So relax. Jalen Waddle will be fine. He was probably accurately drafted, but you probably have higher expectations because of what he was able to do in a lot of games last year. He'll have those games. He'll have his 30-point games. Don't worry about it. It'll all be okay.
He's still 13th most receiving yards in the NFL. So yeah, he has over 170 yards. So
yeah, he's fine, guys.
You're okay.
Joshua Kelly, somebody we got to just talk about real quick. 3.9 fantasy points, 13 carries, 39 yards. Not super efficient, but that's okay. The Titans' run defense is very good. What concerned me was the one target. Wes, you and I talked about it, and we said he's not a huge PPR guy, but he's taking over for Eckler, so we'll probably hope that he sees that role. Nope. Those targets went to Keenan Allen. It's Joshua Kelly is still worth a flex play if Austin Eckler continues to be out, but when Eckler comes back, that standalone value we talked about, I don't know if that's going to be the case. I don't think that is. I think his week 1 performance was more a product of the Miami Dolphins defense's first regular season action under Vic Fangio and getting their feet wet. And then because in week 2, the Dolphins' run defense was pretty solid. So Josh Kelly, standalone value probably isn't there. But if he continues to be the guy, if Eckler continues to be out, he is still worth the flex play. I know 3.9 isn't super appetizing, but in my opinion, he is still worth being in rosters.
Don't drop him for sure, especially with
Yeah,
Eckler's
do not
injury
drop him.
status and with the other running backs that are injured. Don't drop him. Don't give your opponent a chance to have a starting running back in this situation. Yeah, but it's disappointing to see the lack of PPR opportunity. That caught me by surprise. I thought there would be something there. He did not slide into the Eckler shoes in the way we thought he would.
No, he didn't. And just to off that real quick, we haven't talked about him yet. Chargers offense, Kellen Moore. I know you lost. Thank you for letting Justin Herbert throw the football down the field. Sincerely, fantasy managers everywhere. Because my goodness, like it was just in week 1, we thought, is Joe Lombardi still calling plays? He is just throwing screen passes and 5-yard outs. What are we doing here? Got to throw the ball down the field.
You know which team Joe Lombardi is calling plays for now? The Broncos.
Oh, let me think of a bad team. Oh, there you go. Yeah, you nailed it. There you go.
The Broncos.
Joe Lombardi's like,
how about that?
Joe Lombardi's like, yeah, I drew up that Hail Mary perfectly, guys. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, don't worry about it. I got that.
Yeah.
It's all good. Yeah, It's all good. Listen, the new receiver to join the 0-point rotation for the Jaguars, Zay Jones. 0 points, 0 catches, 6 targets. This whole team is boom or bust. Good luck. That's what I got to say. That's all I got. That's all I got. There you go. Even Tank Bigsby, 0 points. My goodness, what are we doing here? Travis Etienne, 6.2 fantasy points. This is fluky. He will be fine. 6.2 is not anything to worry about. He had a fantastic week 1. I believe that is closer to where he will finish weekly than 6.2 fantasy points. There wasn't competition from Tank Bigsby. It was just not the day for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't believe they scored a touchdown. I do not believe they scored a touchdown. I believe it was field goals the entire time. I could be wrong on that, but I'm
no, you're
fairly
correct.
certain that was how that went. Okay, there you go. Javonte Williams, 7.8 fantasy points. I'm going to call fluke on this. It felt like a weird game. It wasn't like he was losing out to Samaje Perine. I know he got a touchdown vultured by Jaleel McLaughlin, the rookie. I mean, maybe if that goes Williams' way, it's.
I'm worried.
You know, I'm worried in respect to what I know he can be. I'm not disappointed because of where we drafted him. I think that's where I'm at with this. Is that it's like we didn't have to spend a high pick on him, and he's a running back for an NFL team that's getting 15 opportunities. I think he will be okay. I think this is something that...
Good point.
Sean Payton is a running back whisperer, per se, and so, I don't know. We'll see what happens here. Romeo Doubs, 5 points. Oh, for real? I guess? Like, I don't know what's going on here. This is just... I think it's going to be a guess with this Packers offense every week, too. I mean, I thought he was going to have a great day with no Aaron Jones, with no Christian Watson. And they're going to Dontavion Wicks and Jaden, like rookies. And it's like, well, all right.
Yeah.
And maybe AJ Terrell is a good corner, but it may not, we may not be able to call out which Packers are going to do well outside of maybe
until they all play together, at least.
Right, precisely. Oh, man. Hey, this guy right here combined put up 1.1. Oh, no, sorry, that's 2 players. The New York Jets running backs here scored 1.1 collective fantasy points. Oh, boy. Okay, so it's the Cowboys, so we get it, but also not great, and Breece Hall is not happy about it. He took to social media. I'm not sure if you saw this. His post-game reports were like, they were talking about why the running game was struggling to get going. And he was like, well, I touched the ball 4 times, so that's why we struggled. And it was like,
he's not wrong.
Call your shot there, dude. Yeah, no, he's not wrong. Listen, he broke off an 85-yard run on like a dive, guys. Like you got to get him the football more. Dalvin, I think this is fluky. Dalvin Cook, this is his second straight week of not a great performance. I think Breece Hall is the one to own, which is exciting to say, but I think it's gonna be tough goings for some of these Jets players, man. And it's so disappointing to see this happen. But
yeah,
better days to come for Breece Hall. Dalvin Cook, obviously, it's hard to do worse than 0.2 points, but I'm not excited to be rolling out Dalvin Cook. Last couple guys here, I promise. Tyler Algier, 4.8 points, 16 carries. Listen, he didn't get his 2 touchdowns. Had he gotten his 2 touchdowns, he's got like a 17-point day. I think I'm still fine rolling him out. We said this is going to, the further down the road we get, the more Bijan Robinson is going to take over. We saw that in full swing. Bijan Robinson was awesome in week 2.
Yep.
Tyler Algier, I think, is still, you can roll him out as a flex play. 16 carries for a backup running back is still something that is, I think, worth giving an opportunity to. But if we come back next week and it's like, yeah, Tyler Algier had 13 carries for 30 yards and that was it, it's going to be like, oh, well, all right, then, yeah, no, it's Bijan time completely, and take Tyler Algier. Take Tyler Algier out of your lineup.
It's shifting that way already. In week 1, Bijan 63% snap count, Algier 56% snap count. Week 2, Bijan 72%, Algier 44%. It's already swinging that way. So in the next couple of weeks, if Algier's not getting in the end zone, then it'll be time to call this for real. But for now, we're willing to wait another week or two to see what may happen with him. But it's a lot of carries
100%.
still.
Yeah, 16 carries is still plenty here. Dameon Pierce, 5.5 points. I'm calling fluke. It was a hard day on the ground for Dameon Pierce. I read something that Dameon Pierce had, I'm not even kidding you, this is real. Dameon Pierce, 15 carries for 31 yards. Dameon Pierce had 38 yards after contact in week 2. He was getting eaten up in the backfield so much that he literally he had more yards after contact than total rushing yards, because he was getting grabbed at the 5-yard line and getting back to 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and he was getting back to the line of scrimmage. Like it was just absurd for this run game, and we saw that happen with the passing game. The passing game had a good fantasy day. Run game did not. I'm gonna call fluke here. Dameon Pierce still is the guy. He's still the guy for an offense. Not a great one, but he's still the guy. That's where I'm at on Dameon Pierce. Wes, what do you think?
I wasn't high on him going into the season, so I'm more inclined to say this is for real. But given that stat you just said, makes me more hopeful that in circumstances based on the defense that he could pull out 15 points. But
yeah,
it's still a rookie offense. It's just a rookie quarterback, but it's a rookie offense in my eyes because of that.
Yep.
So,
yep.
Yeah.
Last guy here, Kendrick Bourne, 6.8 fantasy points. I'm going to call for real on this. Devontae Parker was not playing last week. He was playing in week 2, and he saw plenty of targets, and Hunter Henry is still the pass catcher to own in this offense. That's it for fluke or for real. Let's give you some hot waiver ads real quick and then do a little Thursday Night Football preview, and we will send you on your way. I'm going to start out here. It's pretty simple. Waiver ad is Jerome Ford, the top waiver ad of the week, Jerome Ford. He needs to be the top waiver ad for you, especially if you're a Nick Chubb owner. There's a chance they call up Kareem Hunt and they bring him back. I'm guessing this relationship is pretty severed, and that Kareem Hunt doesn't want to be like, okay, get the call back. Hey, dude, I'm going to see my ex-girlfriend. She called me again. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's what he's going to end up doing. I wish I knew for sure right now and could tell you. Definitely go spend your waiver priority or your fab on Kareem Hunt or Jerome Ford. My guess is Jerome Ford. He looked pretty good. I mean, the play right after Nick Chubb gets hurt, Jerome Ford catches a touchdown. He could have looked anywhere, and he found a guy who got himself open and made himself available for a touchdown. I think that adds a little trust from Deshaun Watson. Jerome Ford is my top waiver ad. Not much to it. When a guy goes down like Nick Chubb, the guy next man up has got to be a guy that you want on your team. That's where I'm at.
He is legit, though. This isn't just get
He
a
looks
starting running
good,
back.
man.
16 carries, 106 yards, and was an eyelash short of scoring on that 70-yard run, plus the receiving touchdown. I don't care. I'll say it. This dude is built for tough. Jerome Ford is going to do very well for the Browns.
Yeah.
And he's the obvious waiver wire ad. I'm thankful I'm the number one waiver wire priority in one of my leagues because I just getting forward.
There you go.
Ready to roll. But
yeah, I think last thing I'll say
good.
here is
He's
that
good.
this isn't just a random guy that popped up. This guy was Jerome Ford was getting buzz in camp. He was being talked about as, hey, this offense has utilized 2 running backs. He seems to be stepping into the Kareem Hunt role. It's not like he's a random guy. It's not like he's just like, oh, this guy was, I guess, getting a couple carries a game and now he's going to slot in. Now, Jerome Ford had been talked about a lot by the Browns beat writers. He is a guy that I think they trust, and if I really am, it's a guess right now, but my best guess is that Jerome Ford is going to be who they are riding with for the rest of the season. So if we hear anything else, we will let you guys know immediately. But Jerome Ford should be your top waiver ad, in my opinion.
And he was there with the Browns. I mean, he's filled in for Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in previous years. So he knows this offense. I know it's a little different with Deshaun Watson, but it's not just get the next guy up, as we're saying already. He's good.
100%.
He's very good.
Yeah. Wes, hit me with a waiver ad. In your eyes, who's the top guy? We might have talked about him a little bit already. Let me know who it is.
We did, and obviously the number one waiver wire ad is Jerome Ford. But if you can't get him and you want to put in your second claim, I'm going to say that Tank Dell is the waiver wire ad after Jerome Ford. 20 points is no joke, my friends. What he did as a rookie-to-rookie connection, something I like about that there. But 10 targets is really good. 72 yards off of 7 catches. What I like about that, something that is worth noting that George Pickens did last night, was it was a lot of yards off of just a short amount of catches, a few amount of catches. 4 catches, 127 yards for George Pickens, 121 yards. Okay, that's fine. I like what may happen there with Pickens. But Tank Dell, 7 catches, 72 yards. That is sustainable. That is someone that is targeted and used and fulfills the promises of the receptions as well. Plus, he gets into the end zone. When you do that, I know Nico Collins is there and will do well, and we both think Nico Collins is for real. But Nico Collins was drafted because people wanted to just try to take a shot on the wide receiver 1. Tank Dell is good. Tank Dell is part of that team. In fact, Tank Dell had a 79% snap count where Nico Collins had a 62% snap count. So he's on the field a whole lot. The only other wide receiver that's seen more action on the field is Robert Woods, who, okay, it's Tank Dell. I like him. I hope if you were able to snag both of them, that'll be great news for you. Obviously, you go for Jerome Ford, but use Tank Dell as your second option for waiver wires. I like him a lot.
Yeah, I do too. And he was a guy that coming into Monday Night Football, we were actually going to do a 4th and troll double down on the waiver wire. We both were in so much on Tank Dell and not so much on anybody else that it was just like, boom, Tank Dell's got to be the guy. And then obviously we got to talk about Jerome Ford because Nick Chubb goes down. A couple other guys real quick, just because we need to mention them. If you can't get either of these guys, if you want to put in an extra priority waiver, whatever. If Kyron Williams is out there, put in a waiver priority. If for some reason Puka Nacua is out there, my goodness, you are playing with erasers for league mates. And also, go get him on your waiver wire if he is for some reason there. Those are the 2 guys that I got to. I don't know if I'm missing anybody. If there's anybody else that was like obvious.
Josh Reynolds
Breida, I guess
for the next
maybe.
couple of
Josh
weeks.
Reynolds, maybe. Yeah. Let's move on here. My goodness. That was kind of mean. Sorry, guys. If you're listening
sick burn.
And Puka Nacua is out there, you're not an eraser. I value you and you matter very much. Okay. Thursday Night Football preview. This is a special one because Wes, I'm just going to let him know from the start. This is an entire Thursday Night Football preview. Double down for 4th and Troll Fantasy. Listen, we
Yes,
are
sir.
in sync on these guys. We are in agreement on these guys of who is your must start, a risky start, and don't start. I'm going to start out must start. It's got to be Darren Waller. Listen, the Giants saw what you can do when you give one of your best players opportunities and targets, and he gets catches for your football team. Darren Waller had 8 targets. 5 of them came in the second half, and shocker, that is when they ended up having that comeback. Darren Waller is going to be involved from here on out. He should be trusted. He should be a lineup lock. He is a must-start. Don't think that this was fluky because of week 1. He is a must-start. Keep him in the lineup. He is there for you to be a solid tight end every single week. He's the must-start for 4th and Troll Fantasy for Thursday Night Football Week 3.
And he's the best playmaker on that field now.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Saquon
got no
Barkley gone.
Saquon.
It's like, there you go.
He's going to see as many targets as possible, and especially if you're in a PPR league, which we assume most of you are because that's the most common and popular format, PPR volume for Darren Waller is looking good. I know it's the 49ers defense, but the ball's got to go to somebody. And I know, say what you will, is the Niners defense better than the Cowboys defense? Doesn't feel like it, but it's the second best defense, it feels like. And that's my segue into our risky start, actually, because our double down for the risky start is Daniel Jones. He had a heck of a game in that second half against the Cardinals. He looked good. He looked like what we saw last season as someone that can actually lead a team to victory, can get you fantasy points, and can do it in both ways. I think it's risky for obvious reasons, but there's a chance to start him because you see no Saquon. He's going to use his legs more. He's going to find a way to get into the end zone on the ground maybe once. Maybe he throws once as well into the end zone. Maybe he hits Darren Waller. Hopefully, we believe that can happen. But obviously, you're going against such a strong defense. It's such... I know the 34 points looks appealing. You may be worried about Burrow or Lawrence, or, you might be scared of some of these other quarterbacks. It's still a risk. It's still a risk. It's still the Niners. It's still Daniel Jones. And no offense to him, but you got to have an elite quarterback going against the Niners if you want to get 25-plus points. And I don't think he's going to get that. I really don't. So he's our risky start, 4th and Troll, double down.
There you go, baby. Like you said, Wes, maybe a touchdown on the ground, maybe a touchdown in the air. Mark my words. Daniel Jones connects with Darren Waller, finds him in the end zone. Not once, but twice on Thursday night. Darren Waller, 2 receiving touchdowns on Thursday night against the 49ers. Mark my words. And you know why I'm going to say that? And you know why I'm saying that? Because Matt Breida ain't doing jack for this run game for the Giants on Thursday night. It's not going to be a situation where, Kyron Williams, he is getting 10 targets. Matt Breida, he's getting 10 targets. He's getting in the end zone with a pass and a run. Nope. Matt Breida, don't start. Don't get cute. I know if you're feeling like maybe you have to because you're a Saquon manager. Maybe you had him handcuffed already. I don't know why you do that, but whatever. I got a hot take for you. I don't think Matt Breida leads the team in rushing yards on Thursday night. I think it's either going to be Daniel Jones or, listen, maybe it's 5th-round rookie Eric Gray. Who knows if he's going to get fired up. Matt Breida, don't start. 4th and Troll, double down. Don't get cute, all right?
Yeah, notice how neither of us said Matt Breida was a waiver wire ad. It's because this is 3 weeks tops. And it's not a good schedule for them the next 3 weeks. And Matt Breida is not someone that is going to fill in for the Saquon Barkley role. So,
right.
But I will manifest it with you. I really hope Darren Waller gets 2 tutties the Trolls
he is.
On Thursday night because
100%.
We believe it. We see what Darren Waller can be. We've heard what he was like in camp. Now or never, baby. Come on, Darren. Let's go, baby.
We got it. Let's end it out. Let's close it out with that. What a way to end it. Listen, Thank you guys so much for hanging around for the episode. Let us know. Are you panicking on the Bengals? Are you in on my man Puka Nacua? Are you in or out? Listen, 20 targets in week 2. I still can't get over it. Puka Nacua is that dude. Let us know in the comments. Follow us on all our social medias. Make Tutty the Troll smile by leaving a like, a comment, subscribe, ring that bell. Be sure to check us out next. Oh, wait. We might be taking a little break here, Wes. I forgot this might be. We totally forgot to let them know. I think we're going to be taking a little. Listen, we got some stuff going on here. Live little addition to the show here. We got some stuff going on. So make sure you are following us on our social media. We will be communicating with you guys that way. We got a couple things going on. I'm going to be out of town. Wes got some stuff happening. We're going to take a small little break, I promise, but we will be back with you for a week 3 recap on sometime next week. I believe it'll be Wednesday, not the usual Tuesday release, but Wednesday. It'll be a great time. We're excited. Follow us on all our social medias to make sure you are in tune with everything. DM us, comment, ask us any start-sit questions. We will let you know who our studs and duds are going to be for week 3 through our social media. So make sure you are following us there. We will talk to you next time. We love you. Thank you, trollers. My name is Noah Selby.
And I'm Wes Selby.
And this has been 4th and Troll Fantasy. 4th and Troll Fantasy is a production of FQ Media and Selby Artistic Workshop.